Month one, everyone's excited. There's a kickoff, there's a demo. A few people say this is going to change everything. Month two, it's quiet. By month three, you check and almost nobody's using it. If that's happened in your company, I want you to hear something clearly. This isn't about not having a plan. You had a plan. This is about what happens after. The software probably worked fine. That's not where these things die. In the next 9 minutes, I'm going to show you the specific reason rollouts fail once they're already live, why it shows up on almost exactly the same timeline every time, and how to design around it before you spend the money. This is for owners and executives who have already been burned once and don't want a second round. I'm Tom Wright, and I run Reliant Bridge Strategies. We help B2B companies put AI to work in a way that shows up in their numbers. A meaningful share of the companies that call us aren't starting from zero, they're starting from a failed attempt. And when we go back and look at what happened, the finding is almost boring in how consistent it is. The tool did what it was supposed to do. The team stopped using it anyway. Every single one of those companies assumed they'd picked wrong. They hadn't. They'd designed the rollout wrong. That's a much better problem to have because it's fixable. Think about a detour around a traffic jam. If the detour is genuinely faster, everyone takes it and nobody complains. If the detour adds 4 turns, 2 lights, and gets you there 90 seconds later, drivers go back to the jam, not because they're stubborn, because they did the math and the jam won. That's what happens to most internal rollouts. The tool gets introduced, but in week 1, it doesn't remove work, it adds it. Now there's a new login, a new place to check, a new field to fill in. And the old process is still running underneath because nobody officially turned it off. So your team is doing both, the old way plus the new way. And they're being asked to do both while still hitting the same numbers as last quarter. Give a busy person 2 paths and one of them is heavier, and there's no mystery about what happens next. They'll be polite about it in the meeting. They'll say they're getting used to it, and they'll quietly go back to the way that works. The rollout didn't fail, it just lost a fair fight against the old process. Here's the thing almost nobody plans for. Month 1 runs on novelty, and novelty is a budget that always runs out. In the first few weeks, people will absorb extra friction because it's new, because leadership is watching, and because there's some genuine curiosity. That energy is real, and it's temporary. Around week 5 or 6, it's spent. And from point on, the only thing keeping the tool alive is whether it makes someone's actual day easier. So here's the rule I'd give you, and it's the whole video in one sentence. Design the removal before you design the addition. Before you deploy anything, you should be able to name the specific thing that stops happening. Not, we'll be more efficient. Name the report that nobody has to build anymore. Name the email thread that stops existing. Name the meeting that gets shorter. If nobody can name it, you haven't built an improvement, you've built an extra step, and your team will find that out before you do. Now go a level deeper on what that gets you. When the first rollout actually sticks, you don't just get that one process working. You change what your team believes about the next one. Because the real cost of a failed rollout isn't the software you paid for. It's that the next time you bring an idea to your people, they've already decided how it ends. Organizational belief is the asset you're really protecting here. Get one win that holds, and the second project moves at twice the speed with half the resistance. That's the return that doesn't show up on the invoice. This is exactly why we run assess, target, deploy in that order. The sequence is the failure prevention. Assess. We start by mapping where your team's hours actually go. Not where you assume they go, where they go. This matters because you can't design a removal if you don't know precisely what's being done today. Most failed rollouts skip this step entirely and start from a demo instead of from the work. Target. Then we choose one process, and we choose it on a specific test. Where is the removal biggest and most visible? Not the most impressive use case. The one where somebody in your company can say out loud, "I used to spend Thursday afternoon on that, and now I don't." That sentence is what makes the second project possible. Deploy. Then we build it and we turn the old process off. That last part is the piece companies skip, and it's the piece that decides everything. If the old way stays available, the old way wins. So deployment includes a 90-day plan, a trained team, and a real decommission date for what it replaced, plus the number we expect to move, agreed on before we start, so nobody's arguing about success afterward. Follow that sequence and your rollout isn't competing with the old process, it replaced it. If this is landing because you've already lived through a version of it and you want the next attempt to go differently, that's what the AI Advantage Executive Workshop is built for. It's a working session with your leadership team. We map where your hours are going, identify the process with the biggest and most visible removal, and build the 90-day plan around it. You leave with a prioritized roadmap your team can actually execute, not a strategy deck that ends up in a drawer. It's a half-day investment that replaces 6 months of guessing, and a second failed rollout costs considerably more than that. Details and pricing are in the description. The companies pulling ahead with this aren't the ones with better tools. Everyone has access to the same tools. They're the ones who got the first one to stick, so they earned the right to try a second and a third. That compounding is the whole game, and it starts with one rollout that made somebody's Thursday afternoon easier. So the question I'd leave you with is this: if your team walked away from the last thing you rolled out, what was that actually telling you about the rollout? I'll see you in the next one.